Hello everyone, this is Gilbert Gillard. I'm talking to you here again from CPLSPA headquarters, Orlando, downtown. This is Tufts on Tax, where all your tax law questions are answered. If you have any questions or any lawsuits or problems with the tax law, you have here, you can call us at 877-647-7887. Again, 877-647-7887. And here at Tufts on Tax, we will answer all your questions. This is Mr. T. Scott Tufts. He's the master and the expert that will answer all your questions and will help you to pass and get over all these problems that you are having, if it's lawsuits or anything related to tax law. How are you, Scott, today?
It's good to be with you.
Good to be with you, too. And today we have a special topic, one of the 6 tax law segments that you present. We have vlogs on them. We're going to have them on your website. We're going to have them on social media so people can get answers to their questions. But today we're taking one of those segments, and the title is Whistleblowing Reporting of Tax Fraud. So
right.
What is that?
So, Gilbert, we have people come see us, and they maybe know about someone in their life or in their vocation or whatnot that they perceive are not paying taxes, not reporting their taxes. And so they may come to us and say, well, I'd like to look at whistleblowing, blowing the whistle, informing the government about something that they perceive to be unfair or whatnot. And the system will allow for the person to report it and potentially claim an award, a recovery on that. And they use an IRS form called Form 211. And so in keeping with our program here that we're trying to get the word out on what forms can create litigation and kind of be wary of them. And we want our accountants out there to, know about it. We want them to understand how delicate these forms are or how they can lead to litigation. This is just another example of it that we're trying to get the word out in our segments.
So let me start here. You said Form 211, and is this one of the forms that's under whistleblowing? And
yes.
What is the form?
Yeah, so in the segments on whistleblowing and whatnot, we do have different forms, but the 211 form is kind of the one that's known where you submit information to the government, and by that form, you claim the opportunity to get an award, okay? Now, the rules are that if you meet certain criteria, the government is required to give you this reward. But because there's these conditions that must be met first, then it's a little bit more involved than what it might appear. All right, so the goal is to take a look at the form. We'll unpack the form for them, meaning we'll go through the details of it because there's quite a bit of information that they need to know about the form.
And you had some things you wanted to discuss regarding that
right.
Form 211.
So what we try and we do this in our segments and can help people go through it. But my main thing today is to talk about, is it a form and do you want to blow the whistle? The main thing is before you do it, you think it through. Because you might not be up to the task, because it may be that it takes a long time for the process from going from blowing the whistle to when there's ultimately a recovery of tax. There may be a long time before you will ever see an award. So it's not a get rich quick thing. It's going to have to be a long time. And unfortunately in this country, when you blow the whistle, you're not always going to make friends with people, assuming they even know about it. I mean, the goal of the program is to keep that information confidential, keep the person's identity confidential, but as between you and the IRS in blowing the whistle, your confidentiality it's not anonymous. It is, you have to give your identity. So some of the things that they look for is you have to name the taxpayer that you're disclosing on or blowing the whistle on. You have to try and give them taxpayer identification information. You indicate whether or not you've already spoken to the IRS. Sometimes folks make a call and then they follow up and they say, hey, I want to recover an award. Can I do that? You have to identify the type of tax law violation. You describe the violation. They want to know what your relationship is. Are you an employee? Are you a relative? Are you a former employee? Are you an attorney, a CPA, or other type of relationship? They want to know if you're still in a relationship with the taxpayer, meaning that if you're still employed, that could be a something that they'd want to know about. They want to know if you're in a governmental proceeding involving the taxpayer, meaning are you a witness to some kind of proceeding? They want you to explain things in detail. They want you to identify how much taxes you think are owed, and if you can give particularity to what year. They're going to want to know that. And then they want to know information about yourself, date of birth, your social security numbers. Are you an employee of the government? Because there's prohibitions on you becoming an informant in that situation. And they want you to declare it under penalties of perjury. So the all of that is kind of what goes into the 211 process. And what somebody like myself does is we try and help it get presented in a certain way that will look different from maybe the ones that are just thrown in there by people. How good is the information? Do you have personal knowledge of the information? Is it a newspaper article, or is it something you have personal knowledge of? These are the kinds of things that we're trying to present.
Now, can you give us examples, like to compare when do you file the 211 form?
Yeah, so if you don't want to file the 211 because you don't care about the reward and you want to just report it, IRS has hotlines. They allow anonymous tips to come in.
I see.
So it is possible for you to remain incognito and disclose something. The IRS, though, will be anxious to get the information and validate the information. And not every tip is something that they will act on. So like with everything, you cannot assume that action will be taken. However, again, if it's a disclosure issue and you have some concerns about involvement in it, the government will look at it and say, did you plan this, or were you just kind of part of it? But even if you're part of it, you could probably still make your claim and bring it forward. So the government wants this information. They want to be able to know about people that are evading taxes and so forth. But there are ramifications of doing so. And unfortunately, as much as the government will tell you that they're going to hold your name in confidence, that they're going to protect the information, things happen. Disclosures get made. If that disclosure occurs, then you could be on the wrong side of something, right? In other words, you could lose your job if you're working for an employer that you disclosed on. You could have an issue arise where you might have concerns about safety and whatnot, or concerns for your well-being. You might have to go in a different way. So you might want to go in as a confidential informant or something like that. And so it's very delicate, and the point is, before you take the step to do that, you need good legal advice, and you need to have that discussion with someone that you have an attorney-client privilege relationship with. The only other thing I'd want to get out there is, before you go and talk to a professional, make sure that you have considered that law firm or person may have represented someone that they'll know about, and or that's involved in the process. And you'd hate to kind of go in and disclose something that is a known, a client of a firm that you're thinking they can help you. So I would caution our audience that if you're going to go do this, make sure you kind of take it in steps to disclose, what it is, and are there any kind of conflicts of interest for the advice you might get.
That's a good advice. I was going to ask you also about the concerns and what the examples, and you mentioned all of them.
Now, you mentioned, are there other ways to do it? There is a informational referral form that looks a lot like the 211. It's actually called a 3949.
Oh, that was my next question.
And that is for the anonymous reporting.
Correct.
There's also, interestingly enough, there's forms for folks who have their identity stolen that turn into tax issues. That can come up.
That's the 14.
That's the 14039.
039.
Some return preparers are scheming to capture your refund or act in a way that's improper. There's a form 14157 that it's specific to disclosing or reporting on a return preparer situation. Now, with all these forms, you're giving them the documents and proof. So you're not just throwing out an accusation blindly. You're obviously have some evidence of something that happened. Beyond the 14157, there might be also 13909, which is specific to tax-exempt organizations. Tax-exempt organizations have very particular rules on how they must operate. So there are folks who might have information specific to a tax-exempt organization, and so that's important. So we try and cover these. There's also a 14242 form that's used internally by the IRS. It's not a form that we actually recommend our clients prepare themselves, but if they run into something that is perceived to be a too good to be true scheme, like, hey, I've got something for you, it can save you millions, just give me $1,000,000 and life is good, you ought to kind of say, stop, wait a minute, I'm going to pay no taxes, I'm going to give lots of money to someone who's telling me that it's it works, right? You see what's going on there?
I see.
Really, you're just not paying you're not paying the taxes, but the taxes that should be going to the government maybe are going to someone else. So
that's a no-no.
Correct. So that's it. So the main thing is
that was quick.
Well, I think the main thing
it's
is
very involved, but it was quick.
Well, it's involved, but the thing about it, Gilbert, is that our whistleblowers, we want them to proceed with great caution. And we want them to really think it through. Are they up to the task? Are they patient? Will they wait a long time for an award, or will they get antsy? And
how long are we talking about?
Well, I've seen it last a decade.
Decade?
Yeah. It can last longer. It really depends on
how involved it is and how intensive it is.
You might disclose something that is someone that's not reporting their income that goes back many years, and it may take the government some time to prosecute the case. The other thing to keep in mind is
it like
if you want an award? Well, here's the thing. If you're looking for an award, think about it. If you report on someone's activities and it's criminal, that's not about money. That's about putting somebody in jail.
Correct.
Well, after the process of putting someone in jail, there still might be then the follow-up of collecting money. But if the one has to precede the other, then you've got all that time in where they might consider a prosecution of someone. Then you have the civil liability part. Then you have the waiting on the statute to run on that. You might be well down the road a decade or so before it might return. So the bottom line is, if you're doing the whistleblowing as a civic duty or responsibility, okay. But if you have the illusion that it's going to result in a big payday or a prompt payday, that's probably not the way to approach it. And I think that's important. You shouldn't have that
expectation too.
And then the other thing to be careful about here is, you can't leverage reporting. I'm kind of big on, if you see a murder or what might be a murder, you don't know it. It might be murder, it might be self-defense, right? You don't know. But you can report what you saw and should to the authorities and let them look into it, right?
Correct, and investigate.
Right. So the idea here is the same kind of thing. If you see something that needs to get reported and you're independent of it and whatnot, fine. You might get into a situation where you're looking at disclosing something. You don't want to be in a situation where you're saying to someone, if you don't do X, I'm going to do Y. Does that make sense? You're not going to want to say, well, I don't like what I'm seeing, I'm going to negotiate my way into this. No. You don't want to go down the road of extortion and other such things, right? So another thing to get good advice about, think it through. Get the good legal advice and do that in a confidential setting to make sure that when you perceive that, hey, I want to blow the whistle on something, you get the advice you need. And then how to present it from there. In this case, we talked about a 211, but we didn't talk about, well, what goes with it? You just send in the form? No, they're going to want to see the proof. What documentation do you have?
Correct.
And what happens if you have documentation, but you take it out of it's somebody else's information? you've got a concern then, right? Because will you be protected by the laws that to take that information and report it? You know what I'm saying? So there's just a number of things that can come up that folks might not think through, and so you want to think them through. You want to get the good advice, and
if they don't think of those things, they come to you to help them think of these things and proceed with their matter.
Right.
Correct.
Right. And then the only other thing I'll say is, let's say you're on the other side of this. Let's say that someone gets ahead of the process and blows the whistle, but maybe they shouldn't have been blowing the whistle. And you're a taxpayer and you're defending a case and the IRS audits or whatnot. Then we can take a look at that too. And there are ways that we can uncode or look at what's happened and see if we can identify the source, why an audit occurred. And there are times when the information we're able to look at reveals the source of the audit. And if we can take a look at that and show an ulterior motive or something like that, we can examine that. So if I'm able to talk like that in defense of someone who, let's say, has an audit brought against them, it's even more reason why the whistleblowers would want to be careful, right? Because they're going to want to, think it through and get good advice.
Makes sense. Well, I guess there you go. We're going to keep on explaining more about different segments.
Yeah, we're looking. So we're going to get the vlogs out on our different forums segment, where we look at the different forms that create litigation. There's so much data that's gathered in these forms, Gilbert.
Yes.
We've been talking about how lots of questions are there, and if you're having a push of the button mentality of filing returns and you're not realizing there are a lot of questions asked on the returns, and that data is gathered in by our, the IRS and the government, then you're going to want to make sure that those answers are accurate and correct. We've talked about such things as cryptocurrency being a yes/no box on a tax form, foreign bank accounts, if you have signature authority on an account, even if it's not your money, you have a disclosure obligation on your tax forms. You have a separate obligation to report those accounts to the authorities under FinCEN.
Sometimes it's simple things that you really have to, but they're powerful things.
Yeah.
That you have to look into and pay attention to.
And these segments, in a nutshell, are our way of saying, hey, did you know that there are tax forms that in and of themselves create problems for people or in business and whatnot, because they are likely to lead to litigation or engulf somebody in litigation, or are going to invite the scrutiny of the government to come in, and it's going to get chaotic. And so I hope that we can get to sit down with folks before it's too late, or when these forms are getting filed, or what they're looking at, because maybe there's a way to mitigate it, maybe there's a way to address it, maybe it's something that we can give good advice to and smooth it out. But the bottom line is, whether it's K1s or 808-2s or SS8s or 8886s, or the foreign forms, the 5471s, or the W9s. We just want to get that word out to folks, and if they need assistance, give us a call.
Yes, absolutely. You heard him, folks. You can call us at 877-647-7887. Again, 877-647-7887. If you're watching YouTube channel, it's going to be on the screen in the bottom. And also, you can email him at stufts@cplspa.com. Again, stufts@cplspa.com. Or you can go to the website at cplspa.com. You can check his bio, and we have all the Tufts on tax there. We're going to have also soon the vlogs that will explain in details, and actually they were great videos on the 6 segments to explain every segment in details, and it will answer a lot of questions. And if you have questions, call us, email us, and don't hesitate. If you have any questions or any tax law issues, come to the master here, Mr. T. Scott Tufts. He will answer all your questions. He is the expert. Thank you, folks, and have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next